safety is so important to me and everyone at McDonald's. You can count on us to do the right thing.
McDonald's promising to find the origin of its deadly E. coli outbreak and taking action now in 2 more western states. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to West Coast Wrap. I'm Alex Savage. Today, McDonald's added Nevada and New Mexico to the list of states where the Quarter Pounder burger is being pulled from the menu. There have been no reported illnesses in those states, but McDonald's says it's doing this as a precaution. E. coli cases have been reported in 10 other states, including Oregon, Utah, Montana, Wyoming, and Colorado. So far, nearly 50 people have gotten sick. More than half of those people ate McDonald's in the state of Colorado. We begin tonight's coverage on this outbreak in that state, where Fox's Kennedy Hayes reports one person has died.
The origin of the E. coli outbreak is still under investigation, but Colorado is at the center of the infections. This state has more than half the cases at 26, and so far one person has died. According to the CDC, that person lived in Colorado. Other states with cases include Oregon, Montana, Wyoming, Utah, Nebraska, Kansas, Missouri, Iowa, and Wisconsin. The CDC announced the food and safety alert Tuesday. People reported infections between September 27th and October 11th. The FDA suspects contamination came from the onions or ground beef in the Quarter Pounder. McDonald's American president said the chain stopped using slivered onions and selling Quarter Pounder beef patties in several states during the investigation.
The decision to do this is not one we take lightly, and it was made in close consultation with the CDC. It's important to note that the majority of states and the majority of menu items are not affected. Other beef products at McDonald's, including the cheeseburger, hamburger, Big Mac, McDouble, and the double cheeseburger, are not impacted.
Doctors say E. coli symptoms usually appear 3 to 4 days after a contaminated meal. Those most likely to get E. coli include kids younger than 5, adults over 65, and people with weak immune systems. E. coli symptoms include fever, diarrhea, vomiting, and severe stomach cramps. In Denver, Kennedy Hayes, Fox News.
And joining us live tonight to offer some more insight on this E. coli outbreak is Dr. Dr Schwartzburg, who's a clinical professor emeritus at UC Berkeley School of Public Health. Dr. Schwartzburg, we appreciate the time tonight. Let's start off with what is happening right now in terms of trying to contain this outbreak. What are the key steps that public health officials are taking to try to track this E. coli outbreak and to make sure that it's stopped?
Well, what we heard just a moment ago from Colorado reporting are the main things that the CDC is doing. First of all, they've taken off the presumed culprits for this, the Quarter Pounder beef and the slivered onions. Both of these are highly suspect because apparently all the cases had that in common. So that's the first thing. The second thing is to get a very careful history from all of the people involved in this outbreak, which is quite a few right now, and to find out if there's any possible other way they could have gotten this in terms of other products from McDonald's or anywhere else. So those are the main things. The other thing that McDonald's has to do, of course, is to make sure that they are following the guidelines that are really very clear in terms of how hot the meat has to be, how hot the slivered onions have to be, how hot any of their products have to be to kill any E. coli. And they have to find out from their source where the meat may have come from. That's going to be difficult because meat comes from lots of different sources into one patty. But the slivered onions, I understand from the CDC, came from one single source. So lots of work coming up.
Yeah, so talk about what it takes and the challenges in trying to really isolate and find a contaminated ingredient when you have an outbreak like this, whether we're talking about these slivered onions. And you also have to sort of look at the question of whether that contaminated ingredient was sent out to any other restaurants or potentially any other stores.
Exactly. So clearly, we have to know where the slivered onions went to besides McDonald's, if they went somewhere else. We have to try to find out where they got their beef from and whether that beef went somewhere else. There's an awful lot of work involved in this. My colleague for many, many years was the first person to describe an outbreak in a fast food restaurant with E. coli. That was back in 1982. It was by Professor Lee Riley. So there's some ironic symmetry here in terms of fast food restaurant was the first description of E. coli causing terrible problems, and now.
And is it your expectation that this outbreak could continue to expand?
I will be surprised if it doesn't. The reason I say that is when we look at the number of cases that have been reported so very quickly, I mean, we're at day 2.5, day 3 now, and we've already got close to 50 cases. If that many cases have been reported very quickly, there's surely got to be many more cases out there. E. coli doesn't cause disease in everybody. Some people just get a little bit of diarrhea. They're not going to report that. Some people don't even get diarrhea or vomiting, and they're not going to likely report that. So we'll have to wait and see. But my guess is that we're going to see a lot more cases in the next few days.
Yeah, and as you are speaking, Doctor, we're putting up some of the symptoms of an E. coli infection here. And with that being said, obviously the reporting is that one person has died as a result of the outbreak, several others hospitalized across several different states. Who is most likely to get seriously ill from an E. coli infection?
Well, the CDC is pretty clear about that, and I certainly would agree with what they say, and that is the very young, children less than 5, older people greater than 65, and even greater than 75 more, and if you're greater than 85 more. And I understand one of these people who got E. coli was 88 years old. So those are two big groups, and the other big group are immunocompromised people, people whose immune systems are not up to the task, either from medications they're taking for some medical reason or because of some underlying disease. Those three groups, older people, very young people, and immunocompromised, are the people that have the greatest risk of getting very seriously ill.
Yeah. And Doctor, as we wrap up here, you have talked about the fact that we have seen over the years a number of these sorts of outbreaks, especially related to fast food restaurants. What sorts of things have public health officials learned from those previous outbreaks that really can help to limit the potential that you have of this many people getting sick from contaminated food?
Adequate heat for an adequate amount of time is going to kill E. coli and put no one at risk for it. So something went wrong in the preparations, because we've known since, as I said, 1982 at a fast food restaurant what to do to prevent this, and it works. So when it doesn't work, it means something wasn't being followed correctly.
All right, we appreciate the insight tonight. Dr. Dr Schwartzburg from the Public Health School of Public Health at UC Berkeley. Always appreciate having you on. Thank you.
Thank you.
We move now to Arizona, where a man is under arrest tonight in connection with 3 shootings that targeted a Democratic National Committee office in Tempe. And that same suspect is also accused of hanging bags of white powder and razor blades from political signs in another Phoenix suburb. Nobody was hurt in any of those cases, but authorities say the suspect, identified as 60-year-old Jeffrey Kelly, had more than 200 guns and over 250,000 rounds of ammunition inside his home. That's led law enforcement to believe that he may have been planning some sort of a mass casualty event.
We want to reassure our community that when you go to vote over the next 13 days, we are committed to keeping you safe.
Officers were seen at Kelly's home collecting evidence last night. Along with that cache of weapons, they also found body armor, scopes, and silencers, along with a machine gun. Kelly is being held now on 3 felony counts of acts of terrorism and 4 other counts related to those shootings. The Colorado man accused of making threats online about killing elections officials in his state and Arizona admits he's guilty. Today, Teek Brockbank pleaded guilty to transmitting interstate threats in 2021 and 2022. Inside a federal courtroom in Denver, Brockbank said his threats were made out of, quote, fear, hate, and anger. He's facing up to 5 years in prison when he's sentenced coming up in February. Republican vice presidential nominee J.D. Vance kept a West Coast campaign blitz going today with 2 stops in Nevada. He spoke to voters in Reno and Las Vegas and pushed former President Trump's plan to eliminate taxes on tips.
Details do matter, obviously, but I think that people overestimate the budgetary hit of no taxes on tips because, frankly, a lot of what we get out of taxing tips right now, a lot of what happens is that you have IRS agents harassing casino workers and servers, and it costs a lot of money to harass middle-class people. Why not just give them their money back, fire the IRS agents, and we'll all be more prosperous, and Americans will have more money in their pockets.
Former President Trump is planning to make stops in Nevada and Arizona tomorrow. He'll start his next tour of West Coast battlegrounds with a rally happening in Tempe, Arizona. Another rally is planned for tomorrow night in Las Vegas. The GOP presidential nominee took part in a faith-focused town hall in Georgia today. During the Believe and Ballots event, he encouraged Christians to get out the vote.
If they would never lose an election. We wouldn't have had these people in office. We would never lose an election. And I think they are. I think we've really energized a lot of people this time.
Vice President Kamala Harris is taking part in a town hall tonight in Philadelphia. This CNN event is happening after former President Trump's decision not to participate in another debate. Earlier today, the vice president called attention to claims made by her opponent's former chief of staff. Retired General John Kelly has been doing interviews saying former President Trump thought Adolf Hitler did, quote, some good things. He also called Trump a fascist who would govern like a dictator.
It is clear from John Kelly's words that Donald Trump is someone who, I quote, certainly falls into the general definition of fascist. Donald Trump is increasingly unhinged and unstable.
The Trump campaign says Kelly's claims are untrue. It responded to the vice president's comments in a written statement saying in part, quote, Kamala Harris is a stone-cold loser who is increasingly desperate because she is flailing and her campaign is in shambles. That is why she continues to peddle outright lies and falsehoods. We have an update tonight on the review of the Menendez brothers' murder case that could potentially pave the way for their release from prison. This Friday, Los Angeles County District Attorney George Gascon will announce whether his office will seek to have Eric and Lyle Menendez resentenced for killing their parents inside their Beverly Hills home. The murders happened back in 1989, and the brothers have been serving life sentences. Earlier this month, Gascon said his office was reviewing new evidence, including a letter Eric Menendez wrote when he was 17, detailing sexual abuse by his father. I talked with TMZ's Charles Latiboudiere about what the DA described as a split within his office over this impending decision.
He just said that within his office, there are people who have covered, some of them who actually worked on the trial, who think that they should remain in prison. And he said there are others who feel like, they have served enough time. The DA didn't make it clear which way he was going on this, though, if you're reading the tea leaves, to me, it seems like he's leaning toward reducing their sentence or recommending to the judge that they be released.
And this decision comes as Gascon is facing a tough re-election fight in L.A. County. The DA's office can only make a recommendation on resentencing for the Menendez brothers. Ultimately, the court will decide if that actually happens. Coming up tonight here on West Coast Wrap, Frontier Airlines hit with a lawsuit over this scary landing that was caught on camera in Las Vegas. Tonight, why passengers say they've been traumatized. Plus, a piece of baseball history worth millions of dollars. Coming up tonight, why it may never get to the person who's willing to pay all that money for it.
And in weather, here's our live camera up in the Seattle area. Lots of cloud cover tonight, even the possibility of a shower. We're going to have the updated forecast coming up.
Frontier Airlines is facing a new lawsuit tonight over a plane that caught fire while landing in Las Vegas. 3 passengers say they've been traumatized by what happened to them earlier this month. A camera captured their plane as it caught fire, landing at Harry Reid International Airport. Passengers who are suing say they had no warning before the plane, quote, violently crash landed. They also say they were forced to stay inside the smoke-filled plane for about an hour before being evacuated. They're seeking compensation for emotional distress, pain and suffering, lost wages, and medical expenses. We've reached out to Frontier Airlines for a comment on the lawsuit. We're waiting for a response Shortly after that landing, the airline said that no one was hurt. Boeing machinists voted today to reject their contract offer and continue their 6-week strike. It's the first vote taken since workers walked off the job on September 13th. Under the proposal, workers would have seen a 35% wage increase over 4 years. It was higher than a previous offer, which was rejected by 95% of the union, but it fell short of the 40% pay raise demand that the workers are making.
I feel like I'm doing this not just for myself, but for everybody that's at Boeing. I feel like they deserve better.
Boeing reported third quarter losses today of $6.2 billion. Healthcare workers at 2 Providence hospitals voted to authorize what could be the first doctor's strike in Oregon history. Negotiations have been ongoing at Providence Women's Clinic since November 2023 and since January at Providence St. Vincent. The union says it's asking for more time to spend with patients, safer staffing levels, and better wage and benefits. It says it plans to give Providence notice if doctors do strike so the patients can be transferred to different facilities for care. Now, in a statement, Providence called the strike authorization, quote, the latest example of union leaders putting power before patients, saying in part, quote, make no mistake, union leaders' ultimate goal is not to get contracts for members, but to engineer an 8-hospital strike that includes hospitalists at Providence St. Vincent and Providence outpatient women's clinics, which would in effect throw health care for thousands of patients into uncertainty. The lawsuit trying to block Kroger and Albertsons from merging is now wrapping up in Washington, with the case moving into closing arguments today. Fox 13's Alejandra Guzman explains it could take months for the judge to issue a ruling.
Washington state continues its battle against the proposed $26.6 billion merger between grocery giants Kroger and Albertsons. With over 300 stores combined, the two companies control more than half of the grocery market in the state. Merger talk has employees across the region feeling nervous as they're the 2 largest employers of union grocery labor in the country. The Federal Trade Commission has already sounded the alarm. They filed a lawsuit in February echoing what employees fear: no competition. Today, State Attorney Glenn Pomerantz driving that message loud and clear, stating prices will only increase and quality will decrease with less head-to-head competition.
We have seen evidence that this competition occurs every week in every way possible. They compete on everyday prices, promotional prices, quality of their products, store hours, e-commerce pickup times, and a lot of other things. This is the competition that will be lost by this merger.
The state is also concerned with who will be taking over some of the stores seen as wholesaler to try and prevent stores from closing. Kroger says the merger is necessary as they've been trying to compete with Walmart, trying to inch closer to their pricing for more than 20 years. Kroger attorney Mark Perry says as of right now, there is a 3.4% gap between prices, making Walmart the low price leader in the country a threat to local stores.
Walmart is a silver bullet in the literal sense of the term. It is the competitive threat, the existential threat to the grocery retail industry in the United States. Walmart has taken over virtually every town across the United States. It is by far the largest seller of groceries. And these are groceries that are not as high quality as you will find in the market. They're in our markets. They're not as varied as you will find in our markets. And one of the benefits of this merger is to prevent the increased Walmartification of the United States. The state of Washington apparently would rather replace the corner market with Walmarts.
The judge still has a decision to make for us here as Washingtonians, but even then, we're still waiting for a federal ruling that'll supersede whatever this judge decides. That's expected to come down sometime in December. Of course, Fox 13 will stay on top of this and bring you the very latest. Alejandra Guzman, Fox 13 News.
Well, we have a new sign tonight that West Coast ski resorts are getting ready to open up their season. A dog known as the honorary mayor of Georgetown, Colorado, is out this week overseeing snow production at the Loveland Ski Area Resort. The Bernese Mountain Dog is the resort's official mascot. Resort operators say the dog's initial inspection suggests their season should open by the end of next week. You got to love the goggles on that dog. Let's bring in KTVU meteorologist Mark Tamayo, who is tracking snowfall and some changes in the weather pattern across the West. Hey, Mark.
Hi there, Alex. Yeah, exciting times as we kind of await the upcoming snow season with the skiers and the snowboarders out there. So if we take a look at the forecast here, there's actually one system dropping into Idaho and moving into portions of Wyoming, as you can see over the next day or so. So you can't see into Thursday. So it's not the big time snow producer we need, but it's a nice little interesting development on the weather charts. Today, though, in Seattle, you can see some cloud cover. I did see rainfall, 0.01, a cool day up in the Pacific Northwest with temperatures only in the lower 50s. In San Francisco, lots of sunshine, a beautiful day in the Bay Area with temperatures in the 70s. And then in the Phoenix area, the heat is still holding on. Temperature of today, 98 degrees, lots of sunshine, as you can see the picture from Phoenix earlier this afternoon. Here's the satellite and the radar. You can see once again that system kind of clipping Northern California and Southern Oregon, moving into Idaho, and still some lingering clouds up in portions of the Pacific Northwest. Current numbers, it is cool. In Portland, 51 degrees. Right now, it is 61 in San Francisco. Los Angeles in the mid-60s, and Phoenix still one of the hot spots, checking in 91 degrees. Here's the overall weather pattern for tomorrow. Partly cloudy and cool in Seattle, temperatures in the 50s. A nice day in the San Francisco Bay Area. More sunshine, maybe some gusty winds out toward the Denver area. And it's still warm down in Southern California, 80s in Los Angeles, and it's hot in the Phoenix area. Once again, those temperatures back up into the 90s. So here's the forecast models. You can see that system kind of drifting into Idaho. And then for us, as you can see out closer to the coast here, we're tracking some clouds moving into Seattle, so maybe partly cloudy. Mostly cloudy skies at times, and could have a few high clouds drifting into Southern California. So over the next 3 days, you can see a mixture of sun and clouds up in the Pacific Northwest. For the Bay Area, more sunshine tomorrow, but we'll bring in a few extra high clouds by Friday and into Saturday. A warm day in Southern California, as you can see coming up, and the heat, it wants to persist in Phoenix, 96, 98 to 99 degrees. So the heat's down there, but we'll continue to keep an eye on the storm development up to our north, and we'll see that pattern eventually change, hopefully, as we head into November. Alex.
Hopefully the heat hanging on in Arizona. Mark, thank you. Coming up tonight here on West Coast Wrap, a one-of-a-kind home run ball sets a new record at auction tonight. Why the person willing to pay millions of dollars for that ball may never see it. Finally tonight, a record-breaking auction sale announced today as Shohei Ohtani's 50-50 baseball sold for over $4.3 million. This is the home run ball the LA Dodgers superstar hit to become the first player in baseball history with 50 homers and 50 stolen bases in a season. The Golden Company, which sold the ball, says this is the highest sale price for any ball in any sport. They also explained the latest on that lawsuit we've told you about over who first grabbed the historic ball in the stands.
You guys going to give us the money. We're going to give him the ball. He's done. He's done. He's completely done forever. Golden Auctions is done forever. The money is going to be in Miami, and they can either agree on a split or a settlement, or they can fight it out in Miami court. Miami will hold their money until they do.
And the identity of the buyer who won the ball at auction has not yet been made public. And that does it for West Coast Wrap tonight. Have a great night.